Hi there, I'm Ice here, and this is going to be a quick guide to the normal version of the dungeon March of Sacrifices in Elder Scrolls Online. And you can get into that dungeon with a random group starting from level 45 onwards. Now, if you're looking for help with the veteran mode of the dungeon or just a more in-depth guide, you could try Xynode's video guide or maybe the ESOPlanet's written guide. But if you're just looking for a single Undaunted pledge key from the normal dungeon, or just the story and the skill point, or you even just got put here for your random daily dungeon and don't know what to do, then this guide is for you, because this is going to be a short guide that'll only focus on the crucial points for normal mode, instead of a walkthrough so detailed that you wouldn't be able to remember the correct strategies when the time comes anyway. Although I am going to spend a little bit of extra time on the second boss though, just because I couldn't find any videos that actually bother to show the mechanic on the second boss. Now, this is a dungeon that I've seen so many players just give up on, but so long as you have a proper non-fake tank, all you need is to understand one or maybe two mechanics per boss fight, and you'll be able to clear normal mode of this dungeon no problem, even at level 45 with no champion points. Skipping the ads, which burn through or run past, the first boss is what I call the tank check. Honestly, the main reason so many random pickup groups will fall apart at this first boss, or trio of bosses I should say, is that unlike the dungeons below level 45, this dungeon really needs a proper tank. Fake tanks don't really work very well here, and priority number one for the tank is to focus on the boss called Ursus. That's the sword and board boss with the green aura on the ground around her, and the tank always has to keep her taunted and has to block that heavy attack that she does, because she will one-shot most normal tanks if you fail that block. Now, non-tanks will get one-shot right through both shield and block, and while it is of course technically possible to dodge roll for a little while, this is going to drain your stamina pretty quickly, and Ursus also has a way sometimes of repeating that heavy attack thing until you just run out of stamina and go down, so that's why you really need an actual tank build for this dungeon. Nothing huge. A level 45 character expected to damage mitigation will be perfectly fine. You do not need to have champion points. The other thing that's important is the positioning. The bow boss, Strigide, has a blue aura around her, and that negates all magic and ultimate abilities as well. So it's important that the tank try and place Ursus away from the bow boss's blue patch, but not at the cost of blocking heavy attacks. Now, magic attacks should obviously stay out of this blue area on the ground around the bow boss. But don't go too far away, because if you stray too far, the whole battle's going to reset. And that means all the bosses are going to get their health bars all the way back up, and you have to start all over again. So don't stray too far. Even the far parts of the island that you're fighting on can actually be a no-go. But it's a good rule of thumb that's easy to remember. Just stay on the island. Don't ever go into the water. Especially don't pull the bosses into the water. To recap, crucial point number 2 for the first fight: magic ADDs and healers stay on the island, but out of the blue patch. If you've got a good tank, those two things are really all you have to worry about. If on the other hand the tank can't do everything alone, then the other players should help interrupt the other bosses, channeling their heals and snipes. And if you're Magicka, you could also consider slotting a ranged interrupt for this dungeon, especially since interrupting is also very important on the fourth boss. One last thing. Even if the tank maintains aggro, Ursus will sometimes charge at a random player, knocking them back, doing tons of damage. Best thing is to dodge roll this, but at least if whatever you do, stay out of that water. And then we'll move on to the second boss, the giant Spriggan, where the strategy is basically to nuke those lurchers that spawn and press their synergy, and then go to Collared Ring if necessary. Now, this big blast mechanic that she's got, you may not see that at all if your DPS is at least moderate, but you still should really kill lurchers as soon as they spawn, just in case. They also hit pretty hard, so the tank should really taunt them, stack them on top of the boss so they all die to your AoE damage. Once one of those lurchers dies, it will drop a synergy. Autumn's protection is yellow, winter's protection is blue, spring's protection is green, and summer's protection is red. Now each group member should activate one of those synergies. And if you then start to see 4 wavy coloured lines appearing in the air above the boss and spreading out from the boss to the coloured circle areas at the edges of the room, that's where you really have to get to one of those coloured circles immediately. If you took the yellow, the autumn protection, then you're supposed to go to the yellow circle. The blue one, you go to the blue circle, and so on. But honestly, on normal, any circle seems to be working as far as I can tell. But the point is, you have to be in one of those colored circles before the boss stops her little hand dance and releases her big blast, or else you'll take tons of damage, and that might one-shot non-tanks. Tanks with decent health can survive this boss on normal mode, would he? Moving on to the third boss, the annoying Nord. This can actually be the hardest boss on normal mode, but the strategy for it is really simple. The boss is going to place all kinds of damage moving around on the ground, so stay out of that damage and just kill all the adds to avoid all that damage adding up and players getting wrecked. When the boss jumps up in the air like Superman or something, back away. That way you've got more time to evade, because he'll be firing off AoEs after he comes down. If you're the tank, try and chain in the adds. And if you're not the tank, supposedly the way to deal with those AoEs that hone in on players is to dodge roll through them towards the boss. But since it's normal mode, it should be okay. A good healer will help. Just don't stand still in the damage, please. So basically just look for the adds, kill them off when you see him, and otherwise watch your feet. And good luck. So if you can do this boss, the rest of the dungeon is really just about learning a mechanic of 2-per boss, and then that's going to be a lot easier than this one. So the fourth boss is the giant Endric Tarsier. This is the sneak boss. This boss really isn't hard to do on normal mode. Honestly, all you have to know is what key you use to actually sneak with. You know, admittedly, that's a part of the game that's neglected by far too many players, but you're actually going to need it in this dungeon. So there's 2 things to note here. First and foremost, when the NPC tells you to crouch down, do it. And then stay in sneak mode and step away from various ghost Endrics and ground areas or whatever that may spawn, and wait and look for that little spark-like wisp that's moving around. Wait for it to eventually stop and then form a green globe. So you get to that green globe and you press the synergy there. This phase is going to happen multiple times. I think it's 75%, 50% and 20% boss health. And each of those times you're going to have to wait 3 times for that green whisk circle to form and activate the synergy. And then this phase is going to end and the main boss is going to appear again. You can stop sneaking. And the second thing you might want to note is that now you really should get ready to interrupt the boss as soon as possible, because quite early after the sneak phase ends, he will teleport, and then it will start channeling an attack that can do a fair amount of splash damage. And then onwards to the last boss, the big bad wolf, or the blue light in the fog, as I like to call this fight. Between those fog phases, there are 2 things to watch to avoid putting undue pressure on the healer. When those islands are full of green poison, stay in the water and off of those islands that are poisonous. But then immediately when the poison dissipates, you should leave the water and get onto dry land again, because the water will then become electrified. It's nothing a good healer can't heal through. If you made it this far, your tank knows how to keep aggro, to block nasty attacks, turn the boss away from the group. That means the only mechanic you really have to know here is going to happen, I think, 4 times, 80%, 60%, 40% and 20% of the boss's health. What's going to happen is mist fog is going to descend on the battlefield, and the big bad wolf boss Balog is going to become completely invincible and start chasing one completely random player. You know you're being chased if you've got 2 red circles at your feet. And big bad wolf is going to one-shot non-tanks, and taunting doesn't work in his face either, so once that fog descends, everyone, but especially the player who has the aggro, everyone needs to look for the blue light and then get to the blue light in the fog as soon as possible. And then what you do is you go through that blue circle, lure the boss through that blue circle to get to you. When he's through that, he's going to become vulnerable again, and you're going to be able to tell it worked because the fog will disperse. That's the most important thing, and honestly that's it. So just to recap, first boss, stay out of the blue circle but stay on the island. Second boss, nuke the lurchers along with the boss and take the synergy just in case, and if necessary go to the coloured circle. Third boss, kill the ads and watch your feet. Fourth boss, crouch when you're told to crouch and then go press the synergy in green. And the last boss, when the fog phase descends, get to the blue light. that's it. You can now go pick up your skill point, your Undaunted reward, even farm one of the sets here if you want to. Admittedly, the Blood Moon set is not what it used to be, but have fun, and remember to live and let live.